4 years ago, I was completely lost. I had no idea what I was doing, no clear objective. I just had one thing that was eating away at me. How the hell do I make my first $100,000 online? And so from that point, I realized that if I could just somehow make my first 100K, then everything else would become far easier moving forward. So I became obsessed. I tried everything. I started countless businesses that flopped. I wasted months doing the wrong things. And at one point, I genuinely considered whether I was even built for it. But then something clicked and I finally cracked the code. And by 19 years old, I'd finally made my first $100,000 online. And today at 21 years old, I make over 7 figures a year with my online business and have helped over 100 people hit 100K online. Now, just to clarify, I haven't actually helped 100 people collect 100K cash because at that point I would have made people over $10 million, but I've helped them start businesses that will gross them over 6 figures a year. And I figured out exactly what holds most people back and how to skip those failures to get to that point much faster. So in this video, I'm going to give you the exact plan that I wish that I had when I got started, one that works no matter where you're starting from. And we're going to break down why most people fail to hit that 6-figure mark, the exact steps to execute this plan, and real business examples of people using this plan right now. And by the end of this video, fingers crossed, you'll have everything you need to actually execute on the plan yourself and start your journey towards 6 figures. And I just want to preface this video by saying that it is not easy. It's not like I do step 1, step 2, step 3, and you'll be out the other end with a 6-figure a year business, but I'm going to give you all the information and knowledge that you need that if you take action on, you're well on your way there. So let's get into it.
Okay, so I thought I'd whip my trusty whiteboard out to actually explain it to kind of best ability that I possibly can. But before we talk about the plan to actually make your way from nothing to 6 figures, we first have to talk about why most people don't actually ever hit 6 figures and why most people never are able to achieve it. Because if you can first identify the pitfalls that you could potentially fall into on your journey to actually making money and eliminate those pitfalls, then your journey to actually getting there is going to be far easier. So let me show you why most people fail and what you can actually do to avoid that out the very, very gate. And the first reason is that their skill just simply isn't high income. And I know this sounds like a super obvious one, but it's a trap that hundreds and hundreds of people fall into. And the best way I can kind of break this down is really breaking it down into 2 factors, okay? Because when you actually have a high income skill, it falls into 2 different factors, and it's either a convenience-based skill or it's a results-based skill. And depending on which one your skill is will completely dictate how much money you're actually able to make from it. So to give you an idea, a convenience-based skill is a skill that is just a nice addition. It's a skill that doesn't actually produce a result as compared to a results-based skill that obviously does produce a result. So a convenience-based skill can be something like branding or graphic design, video editing or videography. It's a skill that doesn't actually produce a result. It's a nice addition to actually have to the business. And I used to fall into this trap all the time. When I actually started my first business was social media management for restaurants in my area. But the problem with this is that social media management doesn't actually produce a result. I can't grow a restaurant social media and out the other end, they directly make more money. And therefore, I'm always going to be capped with how much I can actually sell my skill for. Whereas on the other hand, a results-based skill is a skill that actually produces a result. And typically this is making the company or the individual more money. And this really goes back to the first foundational principles of actually making money, which is that if you want to make money, you need to be able to make people money. And I'll give you an example of how this would actually look. Let's say, for example, that your skill is SEO, which is essentially search engine optimization, helping people rank higher on Google. Now, let's say, for example, you found an e-commerce store that's making $100,000 revenue per month. And you know that with the skill of your SEO, you can actually help this company increase their bottom line revenue. Let's say, for example, 10% per month, which for this brand would equals an extra $10,000 per month. Now, if you're able to help this brand make an extra $10,000 per month with your skill, then you have a results producing skill. And as a result, this brand, this company will be willing to pay you a decent chunk of that. So very quickly, you can grab 3 to 4 to 5K of that as a service fee. And also it very quickly becomes an absolute no-brainer for this brand to want to work with you because this is money that they would have not had if they didn't work with you in the first place. That is the kind of essence of results producing skill. And this doesn't mean that branding, graphic design, videography aren't high income skills. I have countless students inside the inner circle that are using those skills and are making a bucket load of money with it, but you have to be creative with the way in which you sell the skills. You can't just sell the skill of video editing to edit videos. It has to produce some kind of result for the company, the brand, the coach, the individual that you're working with. Because when you can do that and you can help them make more money, you will make more money as a result. So that is the first pitfall that most people fall into, which actually very nicely leads me on to my next point, which is the market that they choose. Because the value of your skill is completely determined by the market that you actually end up selling it to. You know, if I have the skill of video editing and I sell it to a gaming YouTuber, I'm only going to be able to make a certain amount of money from that skill because also it's convenience based. Whereas if I take the skill of video editing and sell it to a startup company, for example, that really needs good content, I can make far more money as a result because I'm choosing what market is going to value my skills the most. And that should be your focus when you're choosing a market. What market values my skills the most? Because whatever market does is going to be willing to pay the most amount of money for it. Now, the third thing that most people mess up with is actually actually how they frame their offer. See, what most people do is they actually end up trying to sell the process of getting someone from A to B, the process of actually delivering the result. But no one cares about the process. No one cares about the drive that they have to take to get from where they are to where they want to be. What they do care about, however, is the destination, where they are heading. So no matter what skill you have, when it comes to actually selling the skill, you want to be selling the destination. You want to be selling the end result and not selling the process. For example, you're not editing videos for a real estate agent to create nice videos for them, because that's not the destination, that's the process. The destination is that as a result of editing the videos, you're going to get them more eyeballs to their property listing, you're going to get them quicker sales, potentially even more sales. As a result, your video editing, the skill of video editing, is going to make them more money, which is the destination. So whatever you do when you're building out your offer and actually how you're selling your skill, focus on the destination, the end result. Don't focus on the process of delivering the result, because again, no one cares about that. It's very hard to sell a skill for a lot of money or a service for a lot of money when you're focusing on the actual process of delivering the service. So now we've kind of covered why most people fail, and I would probably say that those are the top 3 reasons. We could talk about the actual game plan of how you're going to turn a singular skill or anything into $100,000. Now, many people will look at the plan that I'm about to put on the board and go, oh my God, it's so simple. It's so obvious. Like, why is that even special? Why doesn't everybody do that? And that is the point. And what I mean by that is that the modern day version of building a business is jumping on some business model bandwagon, taking somebody's course and copying and pasting everything they do word for word, script for script, and then just producing their own version of it. And the quite obvious problem with that is that it completely ignores 99% of all the business fundamentals, all the foundational things that you need to ensure that you're actually doing and that are working properly to actually have and run a business. So let me show you how it all works. Now, this is the exact plan that you need to follow if you want to build a business from scratch, using a skill, ideally something that you're good at, that you want to scale indefinitely. And just to make it crystal clear, firstly, you start off with a skill. You then identify a problem that your skill can solve. You create the solution to the problem in which you can solve through your skill. You identify a market that has the problem in which you can provide the solution to. You then turn the solution that you've created into a service. You then find leads for that service in relation to the market. You then learn how to sell to those leads, and they learn how to scale. And again, it makes me laugh in how simple this really is, because what I'll do is I'll start working with people, I'll take them through this exact plan, and they'll kind of be a bit demotivated. They'll be like, is that literally it? Where's the business model? Where's the unique trick that no one else has, the thing that's so special and the thing that makes people millionaires? There isn't one. But then what happens is that they actually take action on this plan and they put it into place, and out the other end, they inevitably end up doing that. And on the student testimonials that I do, the common denominator is always, it's simple, but it works. So let me explain to you as simply and as briefly as I can how you can take this plan and turn it into your own business. Now, firstly, you start with the skill, and this is something that I've spoken about so many times I feel like a broken record. Every single business that ever exists starts off with a singular skill. Sometimes that skill is not obvious, sometimes it's pretty difficult, sometimes it's incredibly easy. Regardless, every single business starts off with a skill, and that's where you have to start too. If you want to build a business, ideally pick a skill around something you love. Do you like taking photos? It could be something creative about photography, videography. No matter what it is, there's a few factors that need to fall into this. Number one, it has to be high income, and number two, it has to be transferable. As long as you've got those two things, you're absolutely fine. And now, instead of me diving into another 45-minute segment on, how to find the perfect skill, I have a video up on my YouTube channel, which is basically a tier list of like the top 10 best skills that you can learn, put into a tier list format where you can decide which one's the best one for you to pursue. Not only that, but I also have a skill calculator where you can fill out some information about yourself, and it will pop back at you a skill, a high income skill that's best suited to your personality type, which I'll leave in the description below. And not only that, but I also have a cheat sheet of about 300 high income skills that you can choose from. Pick any single one that you want, and all of these skills are high income, all of them are transferable and high income. Just pick one. I've literally spent thousands of dollars and countless hours of my own time trying to make it as easy as I possibly can for you to just pick a high income skill, to choose one, to identify one. So don't ask me any questions about that. Pick a skill, any skill, high income skill, and we can move forward. Next is the problem. Now, the foundational thing you need to understand is that every business to ever exist solves some kind of problem. I've got my desk, for example, solving the problem of needing somewhere to work. I've got lip balm, for example, solving the problem of having chapped lips. I've got a storage device, solving the problem of not having any storage. Every business, whether it's a physical product or it's a service, must and needs to solve a problem. The only reason that you need a problem to start a business is because a problem is what makes someone take action. A problem is what makes someone want to buy in order to solve that problem. So you need to spend some time identifying the problem that your skill can solve. The thing that you can do is actually pick one skill and you can identify about 30, 40, 50 different problems that said skill can solve. If you can identify 20, 30, 40 different problems that your skill can solve, it means that you have 20, 30, 40 different angles that you can take when it actually comes to selling your skill. You know, for example, if I only knew that there was one problem that the skill of web design could solve, I've got one chance. I've got one chance to hit the nail on the head and one chance to actually find people that have that problem. However, if I know of 30 different problems that the skill of graphic design or web design can solve, I've got 30 different chances of finding a person that has that problem and also kind of like messing about to see which problem is the most important. But nonetheless, you need to find a problem that your skill can solve. Once you've done that, tick. You've basically created demand or you've identified demand. And then we move on to solution. And this is quite straightforward. This is basically just looking at the problem and saying, what is the polar opposite? What is the fix to this thing? And if you've got 20 different problems that you've identified with one skill, you need 20 different solutions. You just need to actually obviously make sure that it can be solved, right? It can actually be delivered. Because once you've got your skill, you've got your problem, you've got your solution, believe it or not, but you've actually almost got a service. There's a few more steps you need to take to actually have a service, but you've practically got a service. For example, my skill is book cover design. I'm really good at designing book covers. The problem is that there's loads of people that want to write books and can't design the covers of their books. Fine. The solution to that is designing the covers of books, making them really, really good. Essentially, then you have a service. You already have a service, which is book cover design. But you wouldn't have had a service until you identified the problem that your skill can solve and the solution that you can create. And then we move on to market. Now, market, another pretty straightforward one. Your whole job here, your whole mission here is to try and identify the market that has the problem that you can solve. But there's a few more factors that you need to consider when choosing a market, because not every market is perfect for every solution. Yes, there may be 100 markets that have the problem that you can solve, but not every market is going to be perfect for you, because there's some markets that won't be able to pay as much. For example, let's say that your skill is blog writing. Okay, that's fine. Skill is blog writing. Problem is that companies need blogs. They need blogs on their website in order to bring in trust, bring in readers, all that kind of stuff. The solution is that you're helping companies who don't have any blogs have blogs and stand out in their field. However, when it comes to the market, not every market is going to be perfect, because there's going to be some markets that don't really care too much about blogs. For example, animal shelters, right? They probably don't need very many blogs, and therefore they're not going to be a good market for you. But there's also going to be some markets that you don't truly understand. For example, if you're a blog writer and I would say to you, here's a fintech company, a financial technology company that wants to work with you. If you know nothing about fintech, then that isn't a good market for you. So the best thing that you can do when it comes to market is try and fall into a few categories. Number one, pick a market that you somewhat understand. I'm not saying that you have to be an absolute legend expert in it, but I'm also saying that you shouldn't be completely opposite in terms of your knowledge base with it. Again, if you're doing blog writing and you choose fintech companies and you have no idea what fintech consists of, there's no point in choosing that as a market. It may be a profitable market, yes, because they have money, but it's not a good market for you. So number one, try and align it with something that you actually understand. The second thing is to try and pick a market that has that problem and is quite prominent. Again, going back to the animal shelter example, I'm not entirely sure, but they probably don't need blog writing. And as a result, yes, it's a market that you can choose, but it's probably not the best one, because it's not as much of a problem for them, and therefore they're not going to be willing to pay as much money for it. And the third thing to consider is just what market is profitable, and it's kind of like in demand. If you can identify a market that you somewhat understand, it's in demand and it's profitable, perfect. Go with that market. You've identified your market, and this is basically niche. Market is just another word for niche, basically. So when you're running your like SMA and it's like, pick a niche, that's basically saying pick market. So let's say niche, for example. Once you identify your niche that has the problem that you can solve, you understand it, and it's in demand, perfect. That's your golden area, and those are the kind of people that you target. Now, what you've just got to do is identify how your solution can be tailored towards your market. And then we move on to your service. Now, again, when I say service is basically a collection of everything prior to that, right? Service is having a skill that solves a problem and can be tailored towards a specific niche. That is essentially a service, but there are a few more factors that have to actually fall into that in order to make sure that it's a good service. And those being things like having an offer that you can actually present to them and having a way in which you can deliver your service. And what I mean when I say having a way in which you can deliver your service is, let's say again, your skill is designing these. If I've just signed a brand new client and I'm a book cover designer, how do I actually do that? How do I deliver that result? Once I can identify that, I have a service. And of course, if I have an offer. So once you've done that, tick, 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 and then we move on to leads. And this is quite straightforward. Leads is essentially the process of gathering data. It's gathering examples of people, of companies, of individuals, of restaurants, of coaches, whatever it may be, whoever your market is, that you can reach out to. So it's very, very straightforward. It's like if I design book covers and I want to work with children's book authors, that's an example, that's my market. I need to find a way in which I can gather a lot of data of children's book authors in order to reach out to them and inevitably sell to them. And there's countless ways that you can do this, and I can't really go into it in too much detail in this video because it's very, very bespoke, right? The process of generating leads for fitness coaches on Instagram is completely different from the process of generating leads for children's book authors. So it's very hard for me to specify, but as long as you understand that that's the next step of the process, then you're fine. You can dive into it. There's loads of information out there. I have loads of information on my YouTube channel which you can dive into, but that's the whole premise. And then we move on to selling, right? And this is kind of like almost like the final step of the puzzle. I mean, scale is like the final step. I don't even go into this too much detail yet because that is a massive video on its own, which I actually already have out on my channel, which you can check out if you want to. But sales is essentially the art of convincing the market that they have a problem that you can solve with your service and it's well worth their time, in terms of you are providing more value to them in relation to the money that they're paying you. As long as you can convince them and prove that that is the case, that you are giving more to them than they're giving to you, you can sell anything you want. Similar to generating leads, sales is its own kind of end of the pond, right? There's not too much point in me talking about sales right now because it will be a 16-hour long video. But the whole idea is that once you can learn how to sell, you're golden. You've got everything here. This right here is the plan. It ends with sales, and then scaling is kind of going to the next level. And just to kind of finish it off, when it comes to scaling, like I just said, I've got a video on my YouTube which I basically talk about the plan from nothing to $100,000 per month. And that talks a lot about scaling, how to build a team, how to delegate, how to grow your business vertically, horizontally, in whichever direction you want. So, ladies and gents, as a summary for this very long-winded, extremely valuable video, this is basically the skeleton of the structure of the plan that I give to every single one of my students who are trying to turn from nothing into something, one skill into a business. Now, obviously, I don't just go to everyone and say, here's the plan, Bob's your uncle, off on your own, go solve it, because everyone is very, very bespoke. Their problems are bespoke, the solution is bespoke, the way in which they generate leads is bespoke, the way in which they actually outreach to the prospects is bespoke, whether it's through content, whether it's through cold email, whether it's through LinkedIn. There's thousands of ways to do it. But this is the basic structure. If you want to build a business, if you want to turn a skill into a business and make 10K a month or 100K a year, this is a plan you need. And I've actually got a video on my YouTube that you can check out, which is basically like an hour-long free course going into this in heavy detail and like explaining every single section, actually taking you through step by step on how to build a business using this structure. So if you want to check that out, please do. It's on my channel, it's free, and you'll learn a lot from it. But that's it. That's the plan that makes people a shit ton of money. Cheers.